transaction shaped like destiny. The acidic stench of scorched circuitry and recycled synthetic alcohol clung to the air like a bad omen. Flickering neon signs pulsed above rusted walkways, casting an oily glow over the shadows that slithered between forgotten stalls. The black market station was no place for morality, yet James stood unflinching, black combat armor gleaming like obsidian under faulty lights. His hand hovered near his rifle's magnetic clasp as he stared down the gray-skinned alien across the counter. Between them sat the object of contention, a quantum phase modulator, still humming faintly with forbidden energy, not just contraband classified tech. And James had bled to get it. "You know damn well this piece is worth 50, James growled, voice low and laced with threat. "You're trying to rob me." The merchant's multifaceted eyes narrowed. 30. Final offer, he rasped, his voice resembling gravel poured through static. The twitch at the corner of his mouth was almost a smile. James's knuckles whitened. He'd lost 2 men to retrieve that artifact men he trusted. This wasn't a game, this was blood turned to credits. But Krath the traitor wasn't flinching either. Instead, he leaned slightly closer, exhaling a scent that reeked of cold ambition. "Perhaps we can sweeten the deal," he said, smoothly tapping a control beneath the counter. A door to the side hissed open. James's instincts screamed. He was already moving subtly, shifting his stance for cover, only to pause at the sight stepping into view. She was stunning. A humanoid woman with violet skin like amethyst under moonlight, white hair cascading down her back in waves too perfect for randomness. The outfit she wore hugged her body with tactical precision, not quite armor, not quite display, but the effect was devastating. Her silver eyes met his unwavering, and in that instant, something tightened in his chest. Not lust, not awe, something more dangerous. "Etherian stock, Krath," announced, pride in every syllable. "From the Centuri raids, pure genetics, worth 20,000 on her own. You get her, and 30 for the device." James's jaw locked. "I don't buy slaves." "Then consider it a rescue," Krath said with a shrug. "You walk out with the modulator, your full asking price, and her freedom. A hero's bargain." But her eyes never left James. No fear, no plea. What he saw was calculation. Calm. Like a creature measuring him against 1,000 unspoken contingencies. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slow. "I want it in writing. She's free the moment we're done." Krath grinned like a man who thought he'd won. "Of course. Of course." As the traitor scuttled off to retrieve the papers, James approached the woman wary but curious. "I'm not your master," he said softly. "When this is done, you can go wherever you want." A smile curled at her lips, full, controlled, lethal in its subtlety. "My name is Kara," she replied, her voice tinged with an accent he couldn't place, rich and ancient. "And I think I'll stay with you for now." Something in her tone set off every alarm in his mind. But it was too late. Whatever this was, transaction trap or twisted twist of fate, had already begun. Krath returned, documents in hand, and moments later the deal was sealed. A signature, a digital transfer, and that was it. On paper, he had freed a slave and made a profit. In reality, he had invited a storm aboard his ship. As they left the trading post, Kara's gait was silent, poised entirely too fluid for someone supposedly trafficked. James didn't miss the way she scanned the bay, memorizing exits, angles, escape routes. The Iron Spirit, his Corvette-class ship, loomed ahead. Sleek, custom upgraded, and unregistered. Perfect for solo runs, and now for some reason housing a mystery wrapped in violet skin and silver eyes. "She's beautiful," Kara murmured, running her fingers along the hull. It was unclear if she meant the ship or something else. James glanced at her sideways. "You know your vessels." "Among other things," she said, smiling. There it was again, that sense of being toyed with, as if her presence was less coincidence and more precision strike. He didn't like being manipulated, and yet he let her aboard. The moment the airlock sealed behind them, James knew something had changed, not in her, but in the course of his life. This wasn't a woman being rescued. This wasn't a trade. This was an inciting incident disguised as mercy. The ship accepted her presence with eerie silence. The lights adjusted subtly to her skin tone. The climate system shifted by 2 degrees. James frowned. As he powered down his armor and slipped into a flight suit, he caught Kara's gaze on him, assessing, not admiring, calculating, like a chess master watching a pawn take its first irreversible step. He didn't know yet that he'd just invited royalty aboard his vessel. He didn't know yet that he hadn't freed her, she had claimed him. And he certainly didn't know that this single deal would make him the most wanted, most protected, and most entangled human in the galaxy. But all that would come. For now, he just knew one thing. He was no longer alone, and this was no longer just his ship. Beauty-engineered royalty disguised. Inside the Iron Spirit, Kara moved like she belonged, not like a guest, certainly not like a slave. Her every step was fluid, deliberate, and unnervingly precise. The ship's motion sensors barely registered her, as if her presence flowed beneath their awareness. James watched her through narrowed eyes as she surveyed the main cabin. She wasn't impressed. She was evaluating, cataloging. And it wasn't the gaze of someone out of place. It was the gaze of someone returning to something familiar. He busied himself with pre-flight protocols, mostly to avoid letting her see how unsettled he felt. She'd said she would stay with him for now. It hadn't been gratitude. It had been strategy. As the ship's systems came online, Kara wandered into the cockpit. She didn't ask permission. Her eyes gleamed silver in the reflection of the nav screen, catching details most trained navigators would miss. The silence between them stretched taut with something unspeakable. "These controls," she said, finally, her voice a soft ripple. "Custom configuration. Military-grade yet interwoven with civilian override subroutines." James blinked. Most wouldn't even notice. "You've got a good eye," he replied, half curious, half guarded. "Among other things." Her lips curved again, but this time her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You keep secrets well, Captain. I like that." He didn't respond. Trust was earned in this galaxy, preferably at gunpoint. In the minutes that followed, Kara moved through his ship with unnerving familiarity. She found his galley. She found his books, physical ones rare and priceless. She thumbed through a 400-year-old Earth novel as if it were a disposable datapad. "These must have cost more than your ship," she mused, not asking, stating. James leaned against the wall, arms folded. "You know what's rare about paper? It doesn't change." She looked up. "That's exactly why I prefer it." Something about her answer chilled him. Not because it was profound, but because she meant it. There was no effort to charm. This wasn't flirtation. This was a mind trained in layered truths. "You're not what you seem," he said finally. Kara closed the book with gentle reverence, placing it back perfectly. "Neither are you." That stopped him. Before he could answer, she walked past him, letting her fingers graze the edge of his desk. She didn't touch him, but he felt it. The shift, the tension, as if two gravitational bodies had just aligned, pulled by something deeper than desire. "Why didn't you resist?" he asked, voice lower now. "When Krath offered you up like property." She stopped, didn't turn. "Because I needed to be where you were going," she said. And just like that, the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Not from fear, but revelation. "You let him sell you." I allowed the illusion. "To get to me." Finally, she turned. "I needed a ship. I needed one with clearance, stealth capability, and a captain with a conscience. You were the only one who refused 3 slave sales in the past week. And you're the only human on this station who doesn't wear his depravity like a trophy." James swallowed hard. "You studied me. I chose you." There it was. No mask. No pretense. She hadn't been rescued. She had orchestrated the entire interaction. He had not saved her. He had followed a script she'd written. "Krath's security system," he murmured. "The blackout, the glitch in the cameras. That was you." She raised one hand. Purple light flickered between her fingers like lightning tamed into elegance. "My people have certain gifts. You're Etherian." "Not just Etherian," she said. "But let's not ruin all the surprises in one sitting." James stepped closer, tension bristling beneath his calm. "So this is all manipulation." Kara didn't flinch. "This is alignment. You were already on your path, James. I merely ensured we crossed." He should have been angry, should have felt betrayed. But what flooded his chest wasn't rage, it was awe. This wasn't a woman playing games. This was a queen on the move. "You're dangerous," he said. "Only to those who pretend they aren't." Their eyes locked. No fear, no submission. Just raw, exposed intellect. "Next time," he said quietly, "try knocking." Kara tilted her head, considering him. "Would you have opened the door?" "No." "Exactly." They stood in silence, something massive blooming between them, too complex to name. Then the comms panel buzzed. "Clearance granted. Time to leave." James looked away first. "Strap in. We're burning sky in 2. Kara gave a slow nod and moved past him. As she passed, her voice brushed his ear like silk. "I like this ship," she whispered. but I'm far more interested in its captain. James exhaled the breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. As he turned back to the console, one thing was painfully clear. He hadn't taken a passenger on board. He'd invited a force of nature. The player steps onto the board, and the target is you. James had always trusted his instincts. They'd kept him alive in more battles than he could count, across asteroid fields, war zones, and underworld betrayal traps. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for the enigma, now walking the halls of his ship like she already knew its secrets. Kara had said she chose him. The words echoed like a challenge in his head as he completed the hyperspace jump prep. But the question gnawed at him: why? In the cockpit, he reviewed long-range scans verifying course vectors. She stood behind him, silently studying the starfield, as if she could see the threads of destiny running through every flicker of starlight. "You picked me," he said, not looking back. "But for what?" Kara stepped forward, folding her arms behind her back with regal ease. "You're thinking like a soldier. Straight lines, clean motives. You want a mission objective. But I don't need a mercenary, James. I needed a vector of change. I'm not some mystical chess piece." "No," she said. "You're the one who flips the board." That stopped him cold. He turned to face her fully. "Then explain it. Lay it out. Why me?" Kara didn't answer immediately. She walked to the view pane, placing one delicate hand on the reinforced glass. Beyond them, the stars stretched infinite and cold. Her reflection stared back at her, expression unreadable. "Etherians don't gamble," she said finally. "We forecast, we manipulate, we align probabilities. But even among my people, there are moments when the outcome is so improbable, it becomes inevitable." "That doesn't answer my question." She turned slowly. "The royal court is dying, James. Not in blood, but in vision. We've grown stagnant, obsessed with purity, obsessed with ritual. I was meant to be a bride, nothing more. A political pawn to be moved across a velvet board. And you refused." I erased the board. Her voice didn't rise, but it thundered through the room. "I faked my capture," she continued. "Deactivated Kraft's security grid myself. Slipped a neural override into his station systems. I ensured the only vessel available with a clear departure path and no political entanglements was yours." James stared, blinking. "So, I wasn't lucky. You were essential." He stepped forward, anger warring with fascination. "You used me." She didn't deny it. "I needed you." "For what? Transport." "For legitimacy." That word struck harder than a punch. Kara walked slowly around the console, approaching like a strategist circling a king with no pawns left. "You're known," she said, "among the pirate channels, among black ops records long thought deleted. A man who does terrible things but draws a line. You refuse slave trade. You don't kill children. You don't break treaties for profit. Even when no one's watching, especially then. So, her silver eyes locked onto his, burning. "When I walked out of that side door, I knew you'd take the deal, but not the girl. I counted on you making it about principle. I counted on you wanting to set me free." James swallowed hard. "So I wasn't saving you. You were saving me." "No," she said softly now. "I was choosing you and making sure you knew it wasn't an accident." She stepped so close now he could feel the warmth of her skin. "Because when the storm hits, when the royal guard comes, when the bounty hunters chase, when the factions rise to claim our heads, I needed someone who wouldn't run." "And how do you know I won't?" Her answer was a whisper. "Because you haven't yet." The words hung between them, sharp, real, unavoidable. James exhaled. His life had never felt like a myth or prophecy, just contracts, enemies, and survival. And now, in one calculated leap of fate, he was a participant in something far greater than himself. "Let me guess," he said, finally. "You're not just Etherian." Kara offered the faintest nod. "I'm the only daughter of the High Matriarch, one heartbeat away from the throne." James let out a breath that was halfway to a laugh. "So I didn't buy a slave. You bought a revolution." Silence. Then James did what he always did when facing overwhelming odds. He cracked a grin. "Well, that explains why my ship likes you." Kara laughed, actually laughed, a sound like wind chimes trapped in lightning. "She does like me. And now that I know the truth," her expression sharpened. "Now we stop running. Now we choose our battlefield." James leaned back against the bulkhead, shaking his head. "This is insane." "Probably. But you've already decided." "I decided the moment I saw you refuse that Zeltron shipment 2 cycles ago." His brow furrowed. You were watching me that long. Every hero needs a witness, she said, and every revolution begins when someone refuses to look away. Their eyes met again, and for once the layers fell away. No deception, no seduction, just clarity. I don't know what you think I am, James said, voice steady, but I'm not a prince. I don't do royal. You don't have to, Kara replied. You just have to be real. James looked away, not in shame but in consideration. Well, he muttered, at least the view's nice. Kara stepped beside him, their shoulders almost brushing. It gets better, she whispered, once you stop pretending you were ever just a bystander. The binding begins beneath veiled lies. The stars outside the Iron Spirit blurred into white gold streaks as the ship settled into hyperspace. The cockpit, normally filled with the soft hum of quantum drive regulation, now carried an almost reverent silence. James sat in the pilot's chair, posture relaxed but mind far from still. His eyes were locked on the readouts, but his thoughts were elsewhere, specifically with the violet skin mystery that had turned his world upside down in less than a standard day. He wasn't used to being played, and yet here he was trying to decide if he'd just been manipulated or chosen. Kara entered without a word, barefoot, wearing one of his spare flight suits. It should have looked ridiculous, cut for a man twice her mass, but she'd somehow tailored it mid-stride. The sleeves were shortened, the waist cinched the fabric, moving with her like it had been woven just for her frame. On her utilitarian cloth looked like royalty in disguise. I made some adjustments, she said casually, settling into the co-pilot seat with a grace that felt choreographed. Etherean physiology isn't compatible with stiff human stitching. James raised an eyebrow. Didn't realize tailoring was part of your escape plan. She smiled faintly. It's not. It's just nice to wear something that doesn't scream property. The comment landed harder than he expected. He shifted in his seat. You say that like it's a common problem. For most of my people, it's history, she said. For me, it was almost a future. That hung in the air like smoke. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the soft thrum of hyperspace and the occasional ping of long-range scan telemetry. You're really not afraid, James said finally. Kara glanced at him. Should I be, You're on a ship alone with a mercenary who's killed people for less than what you've pulled. You're not that man. You sure? I watched you for weeks before I let you see me, she said. I saw how you operate. The way you refused that Zeltran slave auction. The way you covered for a crew of smugglers who didn't even thank you. You're efficient, brutal if needed, but you draw lines. I trust lines. James stared at her, the muscles in his jaw tightening. That's not the same as trusting me. She turned fully toward him. Then let me be clear. I trust you more than I've ever trusted anyone who shares my blood. That silenced him. Not because he believed it, but because he felt it. In her tone, in her stillness. There was no performance here. You Ethereans, he muttered, always talking like you're reciting prophecy. Kara laughed softly. I assure you, James, if this is prophecy, it was written in ink and whiskey, not starlight and hymns. He let out a low chuckle despite himself. So what now? You've declared me the chosen accomplice. What's phase 2? She leaned back, folding her arms over her chest. We wait. Let the ones following us believe we've vanished. And then when they reveal themselves, we hit back. James eyed her, that confident, huh? She looked at him with a calm fierceness that sent a shiver down his spine. Confidence is the reward for surviving betrayal. He didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't. Instead, he stood crossing the cockpit to the built-in shelf where his paper books sat. A little out of place on a ship like his, but then so was he. You read any of these, he asked, running a finger along a worn spine. Kara rose and followed. She picked up a copy of Dune, turning the pages with the reverence of someone handling scripture. These are relics, artifacts of a time when truth was inked, not broadcast. He watched her closely. You speak like someone who's lived longer than you look. I've lived smarter than most my age. That doesn't answer the question. She closed the book and placed it back. Time isn't measured in years, James. It's measured in clarity. Another silence passed between them. Then she said, you are wondering what I want from you. Figured it's safer to assume everything. Good instinct, she said with a faint smile, but not quite accurate. He folded his arms. Then what do you want? Kara stepped closer, too close. Her presence pressed into his personal space like a rising tide. I want, she said softly, to stop pretending I'm okay with being invisible. I want someone who sees me, not what I represent, not my bloodline. Me. James's throat tightened. I don't know if I'm that man, he admitted. I do, she said. Their eyes met. The room shrank around them. You should get some sleep, he murmured. I rest better near you, she replied. He didn't respond, just walked out of the cockpit. But he left the door to his quarters open. A predator's game beneath folded stars. The silence of hyperspace was never truly quiet. To most, it felt like stillness, a void between systems. But to those who'd flown through it long enough, like James, it hummed with invisible tension. Pressure waves from distorted physics, quantum slipstream anomalies, patterns that no AI could quite interpret, but that instinct could. And right now, instinct was screaming. He sat in the cockpit, eyes narrowed, watching the sensors. They were clean, too clean, as if something wanted to be just outside their detection envelope. The hairs on the back of his neck rose, his body's way of remembering 1,000 unspoken close calls. Karen tried the cockpit, steaming mug in hand. The smell hit first, real coffee, not synthetic. Impossible. Where did you... I rated your reserve, she said. Didn't think you'd mind. James accepted the mug, grateful and suspicious. Didn't know Etherians drank caffeine. We don't, she said with a coy smile. But I enjoy watching the effects it has on humans. She sat in the co-pilot's chair, crossing her legs with deliberate ease. We're being followed. James nearly choked on the coffee. You knew. She didn't even blink. Since we left orbit, there's a ship matching our course, maintaining distance just outside long-range resolution. Perfect tailing behavior. He set the mug down, annoyed. And you didn't mention it. I wanted to see how long it would take you to notice. For the record, you're slower than I hoped, but faster than I feared. James ground his jaw. Could be pirates. No, pirates would have jumped us in real space. This is too clean, too professional. James brought up the navigational overlay. They're nudging our trajectory, hurting us. Kara nodded. Toward Epsilon Idani. He stared at her. That place is dead, abandoned after the quantum wars. Not to everyone. Black market tech smugglers, rogue scientists, and those who want to make people disappear without noise. James stood up. Then let's change course. Kara's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist, not hard but firm. If we turn now, we lose the advantage. What advantage? Her eyes glowed faintly. Surprise. James studied her, the calm in her posture, the predatory gleam in her gaze. She wasn't afraid. She was baiting them. You plan this too? He asked slowly. I don't plan everything, she said, but I anticipate. And right now, the best move is to let them think they're guiding us. His brow furrowed. You're enjoying this. Only a little. She stood, moving toward the engineering bay with the grace of someone preparing for war in silk. James followed, unable to shake the feeling that the balance of power had once again shifted. This wasn't just a passenger with secrets. This was a force of nature cloaked in charm. The engine room pulsed with a low resonant thrum. The iron spirit's quantum drive shimmered with unstable potential, visible only to those trained to read the flickers of energy dissonance. Kara placed her hands against the drive's access panel. Violet sparks danced along her fingers. The air shifted. What are you doing? Preparing our countermeasure, she replied. I'm going to create a quantum shadow. James blinked. You can do that. Your ship's neural relays are compatible with Etherian energy fields. Unusual, but fortunate. Meaning what? Meaning I can make it look like we dropped out of hyperspace while we actually continue on a separate vector. James stared. You're bending visibility in the quantum field. She glanced over her shoulder. That's a poetic way to say it, yes. He stepped beside her. The energy crackled around her skin, wrapping her in threads of light. His gaze traced the lines across her body, no longer just captivated by beauty, but by sheer awe. You've done this before. I've survived this before, she corrected. And that required learning fast. James adjusted the interface, his fingers brushing hers. The contact was electric, amplified by the currents rippling through her. His breath caught. Kara looked up. You're responding to the field. What does that mean? It means your energy matches mine. We're compatible. That's rare. James swallowed. Is that another way of saying we're screwed? Her smile curved. It's another way of saying this works because of you. Together, they completed the calibration. The ship's core dimmed, then flared with violet light. On sensors, their trajectory split, one ghost signature veering toward Epsilon Idani, the other toward deep space. Kara stepped back, breathing hard. James steadied her. You okay? She nodded. Maintaining that field is exhausting, but her eyes met his. Worth it. The tension between them surged heavy with more than adrenaline. James had the irrational urge to pull her into him, to let go of restraint, to fall. Instead, he cleared his throat. Now what? Now, she said, recovering, we let them chase the shadow. And we loop around to hit them from behind. Her smile turned wicked. Exactly. James tapped a new course into the nav system. We've got a few hours before we reach the intercept window. Kara stepped closer. Then we should make use of that time. For tactical planning, among other things. James tilted his head, such as she leaned in, lips a breath away. You're very good at building energy, Captain. Quantum energy. She laughed, among other kinds. And just like that, the hunt had begun, and so had something else neither of them could quite name. When the soldier becomes destiny's equal, the Iron Spirit's engines pulsed with mounting energy as the ship arced away from the ghost trail Kara had created. Outside the hull, hyperspace shimmered with fractured starlight, but inside the ship, another kind of charge was building hotter, closer, more intimate. James stood at the tactical console, watching Kara with a strange combination of reverence and disbelief. She moved like a storm bottled into human form. Her hair shimmered with threads of silver light, her violet skin laced with faint energy pulses. She wasn't glowing, she was resonating. You sure you're up for this? He asked, scanning proximity sensors. I've never been more certain, she said, not looking up. Her hands hovered over the quantum interface like a conductor preparing to unleash a symphony of destruction. But I'll need you to anchor the feedback. He raised an eyebrow. You're asking me to plug into the same circuit that just fried your bones. I'm asking you, she said, stepping toward him to let me in. She reached out, fingertips brushing the center of his chest just over his heart. At first it was warmth, then it was fire. James gasped as a surge of energy rippled through him, not painful but overwhelming. His knees buckled slightly. Damn, breathe, she whispered. He did, and the fire settled, fusing into something steady, a rhythm, her rhythm. Now you understand, Kara said, voice reverent. We're more than compatible, James, we're quantum bound. Sounds romantic. It's rare, unpredictable, dangerous. She met his gaze. It means you and I are now one energy signature. He exhaled slowly. Is that permanent? She hesitated. Nothing about this bond fades, it only deepens. And what if I'm not ready for that? Her hand never left his chest. Then this ends. Now, no tricks, no anger. James looked into her eyes. Silver, luminous, searching. He could say no. He could walk away. But something inside him, older than logic, deeper than blood, refused. He covered her hand with his own. I'm in. A soft sigh escaped her lips, not relief, recognition. Then we fight as one. The moment solidified and the ship responded. The console flared to life, brighter, faster. Controls that once required manual adjustment now moved at a thought. James felt the ship's systems bleeding into his awareness, not data, but instinct. Like a third sense. And Kara was inside it all, riding the same pulse. He'd flown solo for years. Now he wasn't alone, and it felt terrifyingly right. Contact, Kara said. 3 ships just exited hyperspace. James pulled up the tactical grid. Triangular formation, classic pincer. They don't even care about stealth anymore, he muttered. They think we're weak, scattered. They're about to find out otherwise. He slipped into the pilot seat, Kara sliding into the co-pilot's chair beside him. Their hands moved across the interface in sync, not planned, not rehearsed. They didn't need words. Their connection had transcended speech. Kara activated the resonance shell. We're going to make noise. James grinned. Good, I hate subtle. Outside, the first enemy vessel fired a warning shot, green plasma arcing close to their hull. Too close, he growled. They're probing, she said, but not for long. She opened her palms, letting violet energy crackle between her fingers. It surged into the ship's neural grid, activating systems James hadn't touched since he'd bought the ship from a retired smuggler with no explanation and too many secrets. Quantum distortion wave charging, Kara reported. James angled the ship, keeping their profile tight. On my mark. Ready. The moment stretched. Another blast closer this time. Mark. Kara unleashed the wave. A blast of invisible force rippled outward, distorting space for a fraction of a second. The lead enemy vessel spun off axis, its stabilizers crippled. The other 2 adjusted, trying to flank. James was already banking hard left, diving under their formation. He launched a magnetic flare, then Kara sent a resonance spike through it, turning it into a temporary gravity well. The ship scattered, trying to regain control. James pulled the Iron Spirit into a sharp loop and re-engaged. We've got 5 seconds. Kara's hands were fire. That's all I need. The second wave of distortion hit harder. One enemy ship powered down completely, lights flickering as its systems went dark. That's two, James said, breathless. The third is adapting, Kara warned. Smart pilot. I can be smarter. James rolled the ship into a spin, a maneuver no sane vessel should attempt midfield. G-forces bit into his ribs, but the quantum bond with Kara countered the worst of it. She absorbed the strain, her body glowing with raw Etherean power. They shot up behind the final ship too fast for it to react. Now he shouted. Kara focused, and for a heartbeat, her entire body flared with light. A final pulse exploded from the Iron Spirit. The last enemy vessel convulsed, then frozen space systems, stunned, weapons neutralized. Silence. No more incoming fire. Just the sound of breathing, hers and his in tandem. James leaned back in his seat. Well, Kara laughed, voice raw but thrilled. That was intense. He looked over at her. Her skin still pulsed with faint light. Her chest rose and fell. Her hair floated slightly from static charge. You're glowing, he said. So are you. They didn't kiss, not yet. But they were close. And closing. The unveiling who she is and what he has become. The Iron Spirit floated through stabilized hyperspace like a blade cooling in the forge. Its systems slowly recalibrated after the confrontation. Inside the cockpit, James and Kara sat in silence, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of transformation. Something had changed, not just between them, but within them. James kept his eyes on the nav screen, though nothing new appeared. His hand rested on the control panel, steady, yet his pulse betrayed him. He could still feel the aftershocks of their shared energy, the resonance humming faintly in his chest. You're quiet, Kara said, breaking the stillness. I'm processing, he replied. She turned toward him. Would you like me to explain it? He nodded slowly. Start with the part where I'm not sure if I'm still entirely human. Kara stood and crossed the small space between them, each step radiating the regal confidence that had grown more pronounced since their first kiss of war. She rested her hand on his shoulder, gentle grounding. We didn't just cooperate, she said. We synchronized. That energy we released. That wasn't just tactical compatibility. That was quantum compatibility. He looked up at her. What does that mean, Kara? She took a breath. It means we're bonded. In Etherean terms, that connection is rare, sacred. Most of us never experience it. But when two beings resonate across quantum fields during peak energy discharge, it forms something permanent, something unbreakable. James straightened in his seat. Are you telling me I accidentally married you by fighting side by side? It wasn't an accident, she said softly. It was choice, instinct, destiny. Don't give me destiny, he snapped. Give me truth. Kara didn't flinch. She kneeled in front of him, now eyes locked to his. The truth is this, our energies are now linked. If I'm in pain, you'll feel it. If you're in danger, I'll know. If one of us dies, the other will break. He stood suddenly, stepping away from her. You should have told me before. I did, James. I asked if you trusted me. You said yes. I thought I was trusting a plan, not fusing souls. His voice echoed through the cockpit. But Kara rose calm and unwavering. I told you it would change everything. He paced, running both hands through his hair. So what am I now, some royal pet, the king by default? You are mine, she said firmly. My partner. Not by title, by truth. James turned to face her, breath ragged. Do I even have a say in that anymore? Kara stepped forward and took his hand. You always do, even now. They stood there, bound by energy stronger than words, and yet caught between mistrust and inevitability. Then Kara's face shifted, her lips parting as if catching a signal no one else could hear. What is it? James asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They're here. Who? She moved toward the console and pointed. 3 ships had just exited hyperspace, sleek, curved, and unmistakably Etherean in design. Their silhouettes shimmered with high-energy shielding. Formation standard intercept. Intent unmistakably hostile. Royal Guard, she said. They've found us. James's blood chilled. And they're not here to roll out a welcome mat. No, she said. They've come to take me back. He stepped beside her. Not happening. She looked at him, her expression suddenly heavy with something beyond fear resolve. We can't fight them, not these, but we can confront them. He activated comms. They're hailing us. Open the channel, she said. I'll handle it. The screen lit up with a figure clad in silver ceremonial armor, sharp eyes under a helm etched with Etherean insignia. His gaze landed on Kara first, then narrowed at James. Princess Carathea, he said formally, you violated royal protocols. Return with us immediately. Kara's voice turned diamond sharp. I am not being held. I am not lost. I am free. Stand down your weapons. The commander didn't blink. You were reported abducted. I wasn't abducted. I chose my path and my partner. His jaw tightened. You mean the human? She stepped closer to the monitor. The one to whom I am now quantum bound, and the father of my heir. Silence. James could almost hear the command deck on the other side erupting in disbelief. The commander's expression shattered, lips parting. That's impossible. No, Kara said, silver eyes blazing. It's already done. And nothing in the galaxy could undo it now. The child who rewrites bloodlines. Silence fell across the bridge like the hush before a solar storm. The Royal Guard commander stood frozen in the holographic projection as if the declaration had struck him physically. Behind him, his crew blurred in stunned motion, officers checking readings, glancing at each other, whispering in tones too low for the transmission to catch. James watched it all in disbelief. Just moments ago, he'd been preparing to fend off a diplomatic incident. Now he was witnessing a collapse, no a reconstruction of an empire's bloodline. You are carrying a child. Commander Thal's voice cracked like old armor. Kara stood tall, her hand resting with unmistakable finality across her abdomen. Yes, confirmed. Quantum resonance signatures are stabilized. Accelerated development is consistent with Etherean hybrid gestation. The air between them was razor sharp. James blinked slowly, barely processing her words. She hadn't told him, not directly, but now that it had been said aloud, something clicked in his bones. He felt it in the bond, the third pulse faint but distinct, echoing inside him. A second heartbeat, not his own. You're sure? He asked, his voice low and almost reverent. Kara turned to him, her expression softening into something vulnerable and fierce at once. Completely. The Royal Guard officers behind Thal stared as if witnessing blasphemy wrapped in prophecy. Commander Thal's face darkened. A child born of an unsanctioned bond from a human outsider. This violates every protocol we It transcends them, Kara interrupted, her voice now regal and cold as obsidian. I am the High Matriarch's heir. My decisions are sovereign. No council, no bloodline doctrine, no tradition has the power to revoke the life I've created. The council will demand annulment. James stepped forward. Not going to happen. Thal's eyes narrowed. You think the court will let this abomination stand? Kara's voice cut like a royal decree. Abomination. This child is the product of unity, of strength, of evolution. It is the future your laws were too afraid to imagine. James couldn't look away from her, the way she stood like a warrior empress cloaked in fire. He felt a swell of pride so sharp it bordered on pain. I was a mercenary yesterday, he muttered, and now I'm apparently the father of a political singularity. Kara turned to him and smiled. Welcome to royalty. He chuckled under his breath. Hell of a promotion. On the view screen, Thal looked off to the side, receiving unseen data. When he turned back, his posture was stiffer than before. Our ships confirm the child's resonance signature. It is active. Of course it is, Kara said. Bonded children resonate earlier, stronger. It's not just development, it's acceleration. Our child will reach stability in months, not years. Thal swallowed hard. No one has ever documented a quantum hybrid. Kara nodded. Exactly. We're not just rewriting laws, we're rewriting biology. James leaned on the console. And what does that mean in practical terms? She placed her hand over his. It means no force in this galaxy can separate us without risking catastrophic energetic backlash. The bond, the child, it's a living system now, untouchable by brute force. Thal's jaw tightened. Then you leave us no choice. We will report this directly to the High Matriarch. You'll do so respectfully, Kara replied. And at a distance, 5,000 kilometers, weapons cold, or I'll consider it a threat to my unborn heir. Thal hesitated, but then nodded. Acknowledged, Your Highness. The transmission ended. Silence again. Only now it was theirs. James sat down heavily, still holding her hand. I would have liked to have heard about the baby from you, not in front of 3 warships. Kara exhaled, kneeling beside him. I wanted to tell you, I was waiting for the moment you believed you belonged in this story. He looked at her jaw tightening, and now, her eyes glowed faintly. Now there's no going back. He reached out, touching her stomach. The bond pulsed in response, steady, warm, alive. Guess I'm in it now. Kara leaned into him, their foreheads touching. You're not in it, she whispered. You are it. When the one bought rewrites the rules. 9 months later, the Iron Spirit descended through the atmosphere of Etheria Prime under the guarded escort of 3 Royal Guard vessels. Once James would have taken evasive maneuvers, veered off course, or simply jumped back into hyperspace. But today he didn't flinch. Today he flew as consort to the realm's heir, and as protector of a future that had already begun to shake the foundations of an empire. Inside the ship's airlock, James adjusted the collar of his ceremonial armor. It was unlike anything he'd ever worn, sleek jet black plating, inlaid with shimmering violet filaments pulsing faintly with Etherian resonance. A mercenary's posture held beneath a prince's skin. Beside him, Kara stood radiant and unmistakable, her long ceremonial gown cascading like liquid starlight over her visibly pregnant form. Etherian embroidery traced the bond between them, etched in real time by her shifting energy. She wore no crown, but she didn't need one. The palace would feel her coming. You're stiff, she said with a knowing smile, not looking at him. I'm armored, he muttered. You're intimidated. I've faced death squads, smuggler, lords, bounty hunters with fusion grenades, James muttered. But this, your court, this is worse. Kara turned to him, gaze soft but steel underneath. Then stand beside me. Not for their approval, but for ours. The airlock opened. Crystal light poured in. The throne hall awaited, immense and cold. High nobles lined the aisle like statues carved in judgment. Their robes shimmered. Their faces betrayed generations of certainty now fractured by the impossible union approaching them. But James didn't lower his eyes. He walked with Kara down the central corridor, hand in hers, matching her stride, matching her presence. At the dais, the High Chancellor stepped forward, his voice amplified through crystalline resonance. The court acknowledges the bonded pair Kara Thai of the royal line and James Felt of Earth. Their bond has been verified through resonance triangulation. Their offspring carries both Etherian and human quantum signature, confirmed and stabilized. A collective inhale rippled through the chamber like a wave of disbelief. The Chancellor continued, by right of blood, will, and biological proof, this union is hereby recognized under Etherian law. The unborn heir is accepted into the line of succession. The human shall hold the title of Prince Consort and Guardian of the quantum lineage. Whispers surged like electricity. Tradition shattered quietly. James stood taller, feeling the heat of judgment on his back. But he didn't care. He wasn't here to be accepted. He was here to be witness to the end of one era and the beginning of another, etched in violet, forged by defiance and growing stronger with every beat inside the woman standing at his side. The bloodline that wasn't meant to survive. The chamber lights were dimmed, humming softly in tune with Kara's heartbeat. Etherian medical crystals pulsed in resonance, casting halos across curved obsidian walls. This room, built for royal succession, had never seen a birth like this. A child not conceived in political strategy, but in chaos, fire, and love. James stood rooted beside the biobed, fist clenched, face locked in concentration. Kara lay before him, breathing deep, her body trembling but unyielding. Her hair clung to her face, her jaw set like iron. Pain rippled through her, but she didn't cry out. Royalty did not scream. But this was beyond royalty, again whispered the Etherian healer. With a force that bent the air around her, Kara bore down. A surge of light erupted from her abdomen as the child passed through. For a moment, the entire chamber paused. Every sensor, every breath, every heartbeat stopped. Then life, a cry, raw, sharp, undeniable. The healer's voice broke. It is done. She is here. Wrapped in a shifting veil of resonance energy, the child pulsed with her own rhythm. Stable, strong, radiant. The healer hesitated, stunned by the readings. This is not normal. She's reading at post-cognitive levels. Neural activity beyond full-term Etherian thresholds. She's seeing everything. James took the child in trembling arms. Her skin was impossibly soft, but her presence dense, focused, ancient. Her eyes opened. Not silver, not human, but something new. A mirror of galaxies. She's not a blend, Kara said, her voice a whisper of awe. She's a rewrite. They named her quietly off the books, off the grid. The council would demand her existence be registered, categorized, watched. But not yet. Not while she could still belong to them. That night, James stood alone at the observation window, the child sleeping against his chest. He watched Etheria Prime rotate below, glowing like a jewel under siege by its own traditions. Behind him, palace doors loomed. Diplomats whispered. Advisors panicked. The entire order trembled. But in this moment, none of that mattered. Kara stepped beside him, hand gently wrapping around his. "They'll try to claim her," he said. "They'll try to contain her," she replied. James looked down. "She's too much. For them, for anyone." "That's why we stay close," Kara said. "To teach her, to protect her, to prepare her." He turned to her, voice low. "And if she decides to burn it all down," Kara didn't blink. "Then we teach her to do it with precision." Outside, the stars shimmered with indifference. Inside, a child dreamed of something no one had ever shown her: freedom without permission. And with that dream, the bloodline that was never meant to survive began rewriting the entire future.